Welcome to the Spaghetti Wall, the podcast where we explore mental health, happiness, and what it really means to live a full, healthy life.
We're your hosts. I'm Jason Wilcox, licensed clinical social worker.
And I'm Dr. Tansei Lee, licensed psychologist.
And every week we throw ideas at the wall of life and see what sticks.
This is the Spaghetti Wall.
Let's get into it.
Well, today we have a really special guest with us, Mark Asper, and I'm really excited to have him here. Maybe introduce yourself, Mark.
I'm from the great state of Idaho. I went to the University of Oregon to play college football. I played offensive line. I was there from 2007 to 2011. And then I went on to play football in the National Football League for about 5 years. I was drafted by the Buffalo Bills. I played for the Minnesota Vikings, Jacksonville Jaguars, the New York Giants, the Denver Broncos, the Miami Dolphins, and the New England Patriots in those 5 years. I'm a husband, father of 6. I now work in the medical device world. I work for a company that provides devices and services for physicians that treat patients with chronic pain. When I'm not busy doing that, I also help coach a local high school football team.
Nice. So coach, father, husband, happy man, pro football player, retired from it. I don't know the right word.
I accept the terms, identify as a has-been, a once was. The NFL likes to fancy it up, and they call everybody that's a former player a legend. My football career is more typical than not. We joke that the NFL stands for not for long, because the average NFL career is about 3 years. So most guys get in, you're there for a couple of years, and then the number of guys that get to retire on their own terms is very, very small. Your Peyton Mannings, your Tom Brady's, your Gronkowski, those guys that play 10, 15, 20 years and get to retire with fireworks and all that. That's the anomaly. Most guys come in and leave just quiet. They call us journeymen because you end up playing for multiple teams and you just go wherever your skills are needed.
I love it. The legend, Mark Asper. And we're here to talk to the legend, Mark Asper, about football, about pro career, about the pressures there, and how this impacts mental health. Because a lot of people, they don't get to experience this part of life, right? They don't go to these places. And so they get to see it behind a TV screen. They get to see it in a different way. And so it's great to have you here to kind of talk about how this impacts people.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I think it's really cool stuff that you guys are digging into. So happy to be here.
Well, thanks. Glad you're here.
Yeah, well, Mark, I'm happy you're here too. Just for folks who don't know, Mark and Jason and I are related through marriage. So Mark is our brother-in-law, I think. Yeah, that's the right term.
That is the right term.
And
That's me.
yes, Mark is a man of many talents. I think one family reunion, I think you played guitar and you sang, and that totally surprised me. I was like, what? So I'm curious, Mark, to ask you about motivation and drive, because a lot of time when I'm working with folks in therapy, they're feeling low, they're feeling hopeless. And so could you talk a little bit about your own experience with just the drive and motivation that you either feel within yourself as a player or just a dad or everything that you do in life, and how you impart that to those you're training when you're going
Yeah.
through these camps or you're playing with your colleagues?
Yeah. So that's a great question. The higher up you go in the, high school versus college versus, professional level, the professional level coaches, and even the college coaches, they don't want to teach motivation. They don't want to teach effort. They say, if you're here, you should be able to intrinsically motivate yourself. You should be able to get fired up and get going. A lot of high school coaching and a lot of that age group, there is a lot of that. I think it has a lot to do with just the age group that you're working with, where you're trying to get them fired up, get them motivated, build confidence in their assignment and what they're trying to do, and how their role, brings meaning to the team, how there's people depending on them, their teammates are depending on them to do their job, and you're trying to instill that into them. personally, I went through this as a younger player, and because I now coach offensive linemen as well, offensive linemen are typically bigger dudes, and they've been bigger dudes most of their life. And what I see happen a lot, it happened to me a lot when I was younger, is you get put into like protective mode a lot, where just because you're the biggest kid in a group, a lot of adults will assume you're older than your age group. And so they expect you to act more mature or to be more responsible than your cohort. So I used to get in trouble. I was the kid that, like, if me and my buddies got in trouble, I was the kid that I felt like they singled out and like, you should know better. And I'm like, why should I have known better? I'm the same age as these guys. And you're also, because you're bigger, when you're playing with your friends at a younger age, you're always being cautioned, like, oh, be soft. Oh, be careful. You're going to hurt somebody else because you're just bigger and you're clumsy and you maybe don't know your own strength. And so a lot of the time when I work with offensive and defensive linemen, it's getting them to be okay to unlock their aggression in a controlled space, which football provides. It's like, hey, you can be big, you can be physical, you are encouraged to hit people and use all of your strengths that you've been given. And it's getting them to unlock that. A lot of these kids are overweight and they get made fun of for that, and they ridiculed or whatever. And kids are mean to each other. And so it's getting them to flip that into a positive, like, no, I'm glad you're big. I'm glad you're husky. I'm glad you're big boned. All of those things are now a
Hmm.
benefit to you. They make you better than somebody else at this position, make you stand out. If you can take that, and so you're building that like motivation into them about being proud of who they are as an individual, and then how that their role as an individual contributes to the rest of the team,
So really using their strengths to their advantage.
using their strength to their advantage. And where I think it
Yeah.
all starts, helping them realize, like, what are you good at and how does that contribute to the outcome of the rest of the team?
A lot of research around that that's shown that we see greater change and greater impact in an individual when we focus on strength versus like weaknesses or areas that they're struggling. That's really cool that that's what you take to your coaching and how you work with kids.
I can see, Mark, how it's so validating. And you talk about how they are able to unleash, things that they were put in a box to do. Don't do this. Don't be too hard. Go softer. Make yourself smaller, or don't take up so much
Yeah.
space. Don't be so loud. And in your own experience, when you experienced this yourself, what was that like? And what's that feeling when you're on the field and unleashing the beast?
I was very much in that like hideaway, just be unnoticed, don't do anything to get called out, just mediocre, just drifting in the sea of mediocrity. And there was a friend of mine whose dad drove us to practice. This was probably sixth, maybe seventh grade. And for warm up, we would have the coaches would have the team run around the outside of the practice field. So it was probably, maybe a mile around the whole thing, 3/4 of a mile. The offensive linemen, guys that looked at my size and played my position, we were all in the very back. And that was just where we were. So I just stayed with the back of the pack and we just would meander around. The coaches didn't expect us to be fast. There was just, you guys made it around. All right, good. But as I was going around, we came around past the parking lot where my buddy's dad was, and he had seen me other times or playing with his son, and he'd seen how fast I could go. And so he was calling me out like, hey, I know you're faster than that. What are you doing? You're better than that. And I just, thanks, but no thanks. And the next day he did it again. And so finally it was kind of that third day where I was like, well, I'm going to see how fast I can go. And so I took off and I ran as fast as I could. And I finished near the very front of the pack. And the coaches, when I got there, they looked at me and they're like, did you cut? Did you cut the field? Like, did you not run the whole lap? Like, how are you back here first? And I was like, no, I just ran as fast as I could. that is the best I can do. And so, the next day I did the same thing, but I finished first. I ended up beating the skinny kids around, and I got more positive feedback and more praise and more attaboys and more accolade. And I was like, I think that's what I like. And I took that through the rest of middle school and high school of I can be the best player on my team. I don't have to settle and into just what is expected. And then when I got into college, I had a really good head coach named Chip Kelly, and he always phrased it in preparing and competing against a faceless opponent that it doesn't matter who you're going against or whether you're the fastest on the team, are you going as fast as you can go? Doesn't matter if you're the strongest on the team, are you lifting as much as you can lift? Like, are you being the best version of you? And if you are, that's all we need from you. And then the pros, it's like, that's the expectation. Like, you are the best at what you do. And it's super, super competitive at that level. But college, it's still, they're kind of, pour into you a little bit more and develop you a little bit more because you're still 19 to 25 years old and you're still trying to figure out life.
No, I love that. Thank you so much for your insight. And I really appreciate how you really describe the developmental stage of an athlete, but just sharing your insight of, wow, I don't need to be in this category or the stereotype, right? I can
Yeah.
just be me and be the best of myself. Thank you so much for sharing that, Mark.
Our next topic of stress and pressure. I have a good friend that's a sports psychologist that helps pro football players. That's a main area of what she does is help with the pressure, the stress. But not sure if you've ever worked with a sports psychologist, but ultimately my question is what are the tips, tricks that you use to deal with the pressure? Because that can apply to across the board of life, whether you're in school, work, wherever, pressure
Yeah.
comes with life.
Yeah. At the University of Oregon, they would have these like life skill Thursdays, and they'd have different people come in and they'd talk about different things. And we'd have guests come in and speak on some of that stuff. One of the guys that came in was Tony Dungy. He was a Hall of Fame coach. He won some Super Bowls. He wrote a leadership book called Mentor Leadership. And his whole philosophy is about, if you teach people to become better people, then football will take care of itself. Like, that's his whole mantra. He's like, if you work with football players, if you just work on them becoming better individuals, they'll want to be better at football. They'll want to do better in school. They'll want to do better here, there, everywhere. Don't focus on making them better football players. Focus on making them better people, and everything else will take care of itself.
Nice.
So that was one thing that always resonated with me, because the skills, the drive, the work ethic, all those things become very transferable, but only if it's part of kind of who you are. And so they would work on that a lot. And after college, I was preparing for the NFL. And one of the things that they do in the NFL is they have the NFL draft where teams get to pick players that join their team, and you'll have these interviews. They are meant to be high stress, high pressure situations, because you go in with a prospective team that wants to draft you, and they have all of their coaches and their general manager and the team owner, and everybody's in this room, and they're all there to interview you, and they can ask you about anything. So we would do these practice interviews, and they would put you in these high pressure situations. And again, Chip Kelly, my college coach, he had this mantra, and he would even have the team like recite it as a group on Friday nights before a game on Saturday. He would say, repeat after me. Pressure is what you feel when you don't know what you're doing. But I don't feel pressure because I know what I'm doing. And that was his methodology. And so our practices were very up tempo and fast, and we would get more reps and more practice drills done than your average college football team. So when things happened on the game on Saturday, it was just muscle memory. It was just repetition. It's like, oh, I know how to do this. I've seen this 17 times this week. I know what to do. In the NFL, it was a lot harder in my position. I was a backup for most of my career in the NFL. And so I would have to be out of the huddle or off the drill or on the sideline watching and trying to like mentally prepare and see the rep and see the drill and know what was going to happen, so that if somebody got injured or somebody's shoe fell off and they threw me in there, I would be able to do what I needed to do and have it be like I'd done it 20 times in person. And so I could study my opponent and almost anticipate what they were going to do, or at the very least, anticipate the hardest thing that they were going to do. Like, what would be the hardest thing for them to do that would be for me to stop? If they did this, that'd be really hard. And I would prepare for that thing and then just react to the easy. I even tell the kids I coached, prepare for the hard and then react to the easy. What's the worst thing that could happen? Well, if that guy on the snap of the ball sprinted across my face into that gap, and I say, okay, so prepare for that. And then if he goes outside, that's easy. You just react to that, but prepare for the hard thing and then react to the easy thing.
Love it. So I heard a couple things in there. The first one I heard actually had to do with accepting humanness, accepting self and building strength, the individual, right? Of seeing you for all that you are and growing that. I think that's profound, because the more we see ourselves and we grow ourselves, that's going to have profound effects. And then you said the repetition, right?
Yeah.
Is pressure comes without knowledge or without knowing how to do. So the repetition, knowing what you're doing. So practicing things, learning things, growing yourself still. But then the last one you brought up, I thought was interesting. I personally, when I'm working with clients, I call it the boogeyman effect. We often have what you call the worst, right? Prepare for the worst, is people imagine the worst thing. And it sometimes, though, what they do is it creates fear because they don't do what you're teaching. Instead of imagining what they'll do about it, they just see it as a horrible thing and they imagine all the horrible that can happen from it. Instead of leaning in, going, okay, well, if that did happen, what would I do? What could be the outcomes? What would roll out from that? And see that those things, you can get over those hurdles too. There's ways to keep moving forward. So if you're preparing for that and know how to work through those things, the rest becomes easy, like you said.
Yeah. And I've seen that go, to your point, I've seen it go too far. That boogeyman effect. I like that. In football, the terminology that they would always use is paralysis by analysis.
Yep.
Where, and I think I've heard you guys say that too, but there was a quarterback that I played with that he had that. He was trying to be so prepared that when we would get into the games or into situations, he would see, he'd see the right thing, but it was almost like he was waiting for the better thing, or he was afraid of the worst thing. And it's like, well, just take that. That's a good option. Throw the ball there, or that's coming. That's your check down. Do that. But he would wait. And he's like, but that might come open. Or if I do that, this is going to happen. And he became gridlock. He just couldn't perform to the best of his ability or even what he had done previously. And I think some of the best quarterbacks I played with, they would always talk about trying to get into that like state of play, that state of flow where you're aware of the bad outcomes, but they don't become fearful. And your preparation allows you to navigate those or stay away from those. And it just becomes like a more fluid interaction.
Yeah. And I think one thing that you're also kind of highlighting here is how people move forward, right? With big fears in front of them or big things that might happen, is recognizing we have the power, we have the skills, we have abilities to move through those hurdles. Kind of like even if someone got fired from a job, that's one that's come up before in my sessions with people. They're so afraid they might get fired from a job that it's giving them so much anxiety that they're now making mistakes at the job. And so we even just walk through that. Okay, well, if you got fired at the job, then what would happen? And sometimes I'll even say, have you been fired before? And maybe someone says, yeah. And I say, okay, well, then what happened? And then they walk through their process. Well, they started applying, they got another job, and then they started working. It's like, okay, so you'll work through this one too. You'll get to the next point. Things will be okay because you have the skills, you have the abilities. And if you do what you're talking about, where people keep training, they keep growing themselves, they keep growing those abilities, it's only going to make it easier.
Yeah. The phrase that I use that my O-line coach in college used to use on me that I now use on the kids I coach is I tell them, don't let one bad play become two bad plays.
Right.
If you have a bad play, you mess up. The worst thing that can happen is that lingers because in about 30 seconds, there's going to be another play. You're focused on what you did and how you messed up and what you should have done on that last play. Now you're back at the line and there's another play about to happen. And if you have anything rolling around in your brain about, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that, it's like you have to move on to the next play. When you have time between series, between quarters, after the game to look and be retrospective and kind of analyze, well, what should I have done? What could I have done better? what clues should I have had that was going to happen, or what could I have done differently? Do it then, but you don't have time to do it between, from one play to another. So I always tell them, don't let one bad play become two. Everybody messes up, but shelf that. There's another play about to happen, and your team needs you.
Beautiful.
I'm curious for you, Mark, what advice would you give folks who have those losses or fails? You lost a job, you got fired, you got dumped. What advice do you have for our audience who might be experiencing that analysis paralysis or beating themselves up or being in this really self-deprecating space after
Yeah.
a loss?
So one of the ways that the coach explained it to me that I really liked was what a W, a win, or an L represent. Most of the time people think an L means lose. And he would always say, there is no losing, there is only learning. We either win or we learn.
Mm,
So either the outcome goes the way we want it to, or we learn how to, prepare or be in a better place for the next opportunity to win. And so that losing, it's just taking a negative and putting a positive twist on it, where it's like, I lost a job, or I lost a relationship, or something happened. It's like, you could take that as a loss, or you say, what did I learn from this? Well, I learned I don't like these traits in a person that I'm in a relationship with, or a job. I don't respond to this type of management. Maybe I'm not as competitive as I thought, and working in a competitive space isn't for me. Even in a loss, there's something to be learned from that. I didn't win all of my football games in my career, and I'm not saying I was holistic and always came away like, oh, well, I learned something from that one. They hurt. Losses hurt, especially the ones that you're super invested in. If it's a career you put a lot of time into, if it's a relationship you put a lot of time into, it's going to hurt, and it's going to be sorrow. I think it's okay to go through that, but there comes a point where it's like, all right, now I have to learn from that and prepare yourself to not be in that position again. One thing that was taught to me that I teach on to the next generation of guys is that it's never as good and it's never as bad as it seems. We record the football games and we watch them after the fact. And I'll have guys after a game that feel like, I just played so bad, I did terribly. And it's like, well, we'll see what the tape says. Or
mhm.
guys that they'll be like, oh, I played so good, I had the best game of my life. And it's like, well, we'll see what the tape says. And inevitably, when you watch the tape, it's like, it wasn't as good as you thought, and it wasn't as bad as you thought. It all
Mhm.
kind of evens out. There were some good parts and some good plays, and there were some bad parts and some bad plays. And it's really like where you choose to put your focus. In a win or a loss, it's like, what good things can come from that we can build on, and what things can we learn from and move on.
Great advice. It sounds like there's a level of neutrality that helps with reality testing and staying more objective instead of being so hard on yourself or going to the other spectrum of like, I'm the best. I did awesome. I'm amazing. Thank you so much, Mark, for that.
I'm
But
going to steal one of your lines. I normally tell people that there is no failure. There's just learning moments, but I love there's winning and learning. I love it.
yeah, yeah.
I would be curious, Mark, with us with our time and everything, is there anything else that you think would be really impactful to impart to our audience with what you've learned and the things that you've gone through in life?
One of the things that I like is finding good mentors, finding good coaches. I've been the benefactor of a lot of people pouring a lot of time and effort and learning into me. And that's kind of what has drawn me into coaching. So I feel like if you don't have good coaches or good mentors or good people in your life, like, find those, latch onto those. Those can be so helpful. And somebody gave me this definition of a mentor, which I like. A mentor is a coach that you get to choose, right? It's somebody that you choose to follow. Sometimes you end up with a coach or a boss or a manager, and it's like, well, that's my leader, but we don't mesh, or their style, I get nothing from them. It's like, that doesn't have to be your leader or your manager, your coach. You find a mentor, find somebody that you think, I like the way that they do this, or I like the way that they live their life, or the way that they go about their job, and I want to emulate those things. So find a mentor and somebody that you can latch onto. And I think about people in life that, didn't have that either from their parents or from their community, from coaches, from somebody else. They weren't getting that constant positive input on what they were doing and feeling good about themselves, and how that could lead to self-doubt where you're in a situation and it's like, well, I'm not sure I can do that job. I'm not sure I can talk to that person. I'm not sure I can do that thing, versus the advantage that I feel like I've had from years and years and years of that. I have very much of I can probably do that. Like that self-belief of I've been successful before, and I feel confident in what I can do, and I'm just going to go do it. And even if I fail, I learned I can't do that.
Or there's things to learn from it.
And there's things to learn from it. Yeah, there's things to learn.
Oh, okay. Well, there you have it from Mark Asper. Tip is find a mentor.
The legendary Mark
Oh,
Asper.
yes. Legend. A legend, Mark
Legend.
Asper. Tip of the day is find a mentor who believes in you and one that you have chosen. And I just felt like my heart just warmed when you were just talking about having that lived experience of people pouring belief, to believe in you, to see your value, to remind you all the time of your strengths and how you are able to show up and be the best version of yourself. I'm also going to steal the saying that you got from your coach. Pressure is a feeling you get when you don't know what you're doing. I'm stealing that for my clients.
I think I would throw one thought out with what you said, Mark, because it's really, really a great point you're bringing up about a coach, right? A coach, a mentor, they can have profound impacts on you. And coaches, though, a coach isn't going to go out there and just blow smoke up your,
Right. If they're any good, if they're worth anything, they won't. Yep.
They're going to see how to help create the best version of you. So your advice, I think, is a profound and awesome tip in life. And be careful that you don't find a mentor that just wants to make you feel great all the time, right? Someone that's going to show you how to actually grow, how to actually move forward, how to actually be successful and to be the best version of you.
100%. I would agree with that. My O-line coach in college is one of the greatest coaches I've ever been around. And he was a man of few praises. He was a hard-nosed coach. And he made clear expectations of what he wanted done. And if you did those things, great. If you didn't, he let you know about it.
Yep.
I 100% agree. You don't want somebody that's just putting false wind in your sails and is just constantly building you up with false affirmation or false praise. It's like, you also want somebody that challenges you and pushes you to be better. So 100% agree.
Great. Legend Mark Asper. We really appreciate you on the show today.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thanks for the invite.
All righty, take care.
That's it for today's episode of The Spaghetti Wall. If something in this session hits home, you're not alone. These are the kinds of real conversations we all need more of.
Seriously, relationships are messy. Healing is messy. And life, yeah, it's definitely messy. But that's exactly where the growth happens.
If you found this episode helpful, share it with someone you care about. And don't forget to subscribe. New episodes drop every week with real stories, honest insight, and practical tools.
And if you want to learn more about the work we do or are looking for support in your own relationship, head over to avidcounseling.org. We'd love to connect.
Until next time, keep showing up.
And stay curious.
And remember, the mess is the method.